Do you know highly sensitive people? People who always act cautiously and face all things uneasily at first? People who are very vulnerable and can be overwhelmed quickly by many new impressions. The psychological key to understanding these character traits can be revealed in the tradition of Jungian psychology, in the archetype of the safekeeper. In this video, we will introduce you to the safekeeper archetype in 10 points, using examples from movies and mythology. We also discuss its well-known appearance, high sensitivity, as well as its pathological manifestation, the avoidant personality disorder, sometimes also called anxious personality disorder, and formerly also called hypersensitive personality disorder. We will also give you some tips on how to successfully deal with the safekeeper and his strengths and weaknesses. The safekeeper archetype, high sensitivity and the avoidant personality disorder in 10 points. Point 1. What makes the highly sensitive person or the safekeeper tick? The archetypal safekeeper belongs to the phlegmatic temperament. His main personality trait is his sensitivity, which in extreme cases is also called neuroticism. His attention is focused on his innermost self. He is so receptive and sensitive that he is constantly occupied with his intense and deep somatic experience and internalization of external stimuli, which can also become overwhelming. Accordingly, his basic needs are to protect his vulnerability and to maintain a safe space for his intense inner experience. He thus strives for security and familiarity and is always very cautious. Point 2. His strength. Being loyal, consistent and principled are the main qualities of the safekeeper archetype and the highly sensitive person. Also noteworthy is his ability to be touched by something positive very deeply and for a very long time. Point 3. His weakness. Just as he can be touched very deeply by something positive and for a very long time, he can be deeply and long affected and hurt by something negative. To protect himself from such experiences, the safekeeper fears and avoids changes. Since he processes and internalizes everything on a somatic level, this takes a correspondingly long time. Therefore, he tends to inactivity. If he applies his deep loyalty uncritically, he tends to dogmatism. Point 4. How to recognize high sensitivity and the safekeeper archetype. You can recognize safekeepers or highly sensitive persons very well by their shyness, sensitivity and emotionality. They are rather introverted and reluctant to get involved in something new, and if they do, then they do it only very slowly. The safekeeper usually lives a very secluded life and surrounds himself only with things and people that give him a feeling of security and safety. A good example of a safekeeper is Michael Jackson.
I like songs that touch the heart and that stay with a person for a lifetime. And that's what's important to me and to the people. And that's what I'm here for.
I do all the time. Do you? Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but I get embarrassed easily. And I don't know, sometimes the time I'm most comfortable on stage than any place in the world. Being around, everyday people and stuff, I feel strange. I do. Shy.
Are you a prayerful person?
Pardon?
I said, are you a prayerful type person?
Oh, yeah, I pray a lot, yeah. I see a beautiful sunset and I say, God, it's beautiful, thank you. Or a baby smile or butterfly's wings or anything like that,
The safekeeper archetype can be confused with the hermit archetype, whereas the hermit has no problem to deal in theory with new things and topics. In contrast to the safekeeper, whose pathological expression is the avoidant personality disorder, the pathological form of the hermit is the schizoid personality disorder. Point 5. How does the safekeeper react in conflict situations? When overwhelmed or in conflict, the safekeeper unconsciously retreats to an earlier psychological stage of development. It is a retreat to the familiar. This defense mechanism is called regression. Examples of regression behavior can be gluttony or childish defiant behavior. Conversion, and somatization are other typical defense mechanisms of the safekeeper. Both involve the physical expression of psychological conflicts. In conversion, the physical symptoms are a symbolic meaning for the conflict. In somatization, on the other hand, they have no symbolic meaning. Point 6. The safekeeper in mythology. The safekeeper archetype, like all personality archetypes, is a basic pattern of human experience. We experience this archetype in many myths and fairy tales. For example, in Christian mythology we find the allegory of chastity. In biblical mythology we find Joseph, the son of Jacob, who was sold to Egypt as a slave by his brother. Partly because of his loyalty, Joseph eventually becomes a confidant of his master Potiphar and is given more and more responsibility. One day, Potiphar's wife makes very clear advances to Joseph, which he rejects. This speaks for Joseph's chastity and for his loyalty to his master. In Arthurian and Grail mythology we find among others Elaine of Corbenic, the Grail-bearer. In Greek mythology, Hestia corresponds to the safekeeper archetype. She is considered the guardian of families and of the domestic hearthfire. In modern myths we find the safekeeper archetype as well. Good examples include Edward Scissorhands and the hobbits, as well as the Ents in Lord of the Rings.
Can I help you?
That remains to be seen. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
An adventure? No, I don't imagine anyone west of Bree would have much interest in adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner. Good morning.
I shall inform the others.
Inform the who? What? No, wait. We do not want any adventures here. Thank you. Not today. Not. I suggest you try over the hill or across the water. Good morning.
In Game of Thrones, Sansa Stark is obviously an equivalent of the safekeeper. She is loyal and needs a long time to let go of her life circumstances and start something new, even if those circumstances are particularly torturous for her.
Killing you would send your brother a message.
But my mother insists on keeping you alive.
Stand. Sir, we'll have to send your brother a message some other way. Meryn. Leave her face. I like her pretty.
Speak louder!
What's the meaning of this? What kind of knight beats a helpless girl?
The kind who serves his king, imp.
Careful now. We don't want to get blood all over your pretty white cloak.
Someone get the girl something to cover herself with. She's to be your queen. Have you no regard for her honor?
I'm punishing her.
For what crimes? She should not fight her brother's battle, you half-wit.
Can't talk to me like that. The king can do as he likes.
I apologize for my nephew's behavior. Tell me the truth. Do you want an end to this engagement?
I am loyal to King Joffrey, my one true love.
Point 7. The Safekeeper and the Hero's Journey. In the mythological success structure of the hero's journey, the hero needs the skills of the Safekeeper to successfully pass through the 9th stage. In this stage, the hero reaches the point of deep inner transformation and receives a reward for it, which can take 3 forms. It can be reconciliation with a father or a father figure, it can also be apotheosis, that means the hero becomes divine, or he may receive an ultimate boon from a supernatural source. In this stage, the hero needs the sensitivity and loyalty of the Safekeeper to accept a higher good or the reward of his transformation deeply within himself and to preserve it. Also, in every project or venture we undertake, this is the point where we receive the results of our work. By the way, you can learn more about this stage of the hero's journey in our video series about it, link in the description. Point 8. How can you recognize an anxious or avoidant personality disorder? We have already explained to you many characteristics that describe the personality archetype of the Safekeeper, and so it should be now possible for you to recognize it. Often it is even easier to perceive the pathological manifestation, because its characteristics are usually more pronounced and have a negative effect. In the ICD-10, the avoidant personality disorder, sometimes also called anxious personality disorder, is classified under F60.6. In addition to the features of a specific personality disorder, F60, that should be present for a diagnosis of a personality disorder, at least 4 of the following 6 criteria must be present for an anxious or avoidant personality disorder to be diagnosed. Point 1. Persistent and pervasive feelings of tension and apprehension. Point 2. Belief that oneself is socially inept, unattractive, or inferior in comparison to others. Point 3. Excessive preoccupation with being criticized or rejected in social situations. Point 4. Personal contact only when there is certainty of being liked. Point 5. Restrictions in lifestyle because of need for physical security. Point 6. Avoidance of occupational or social activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fear of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. The DSM-5 criteria are quite similar and therefore not mentioned separately here. Maybe we will make a video about personality disorders later, perhaps in an extra channel. Simply subscribe to our channel and when the time comes we will let you know, or subscribe to our newsletter. Please find the link in the description. Someone suffering from an anxious or avoidant personality disorder is one of the typical difficult personalities. It is usually quite challenging when your boss, a colleague, your spouse, or a life partner, a parent, or a child suffers from this personality disorder. So the question arises: how to deal skillfully with a Safekeeper? Point 9. Here are a few initial tips. To deal well with a Safekeeper, it is important to still his fear of change. To get him to engage with something, you can show him that it fits with his familiar beliefs, as well as point out the references to what he already knows. It is always important to give him plenty of time to integrate the new into the familiar. To deepen your knowledge of this and all other archetypes and to understand their meaning, in therapy, coaching, business relationships, professional and private life, you can attend our seminars on the personality archetypes. You can find more info in the description text below the video. Point 10. How can someone with high sensitivity or with an anxious or avoidant tendency balance their personality? If an anxious person wants to balance his or her imbalances, or if a well-developed Safekeeper wants to expand his competencies, or if you want to balance your inner Safekeeper, it is a good idea to develop within yourself the complementary archetype, namely the Trickster, also called Equilibrist. In contrast to the Safekeeper, the Trickster has a high degree of resilience and is able to deal with all kinds of emerging situations in a spontaneous, solution-oriented and creative way. To learn more about this archetype, watch the video about it in our channel. Do you see yourself as a Safekeeper? Do you know people in your environment who match these personality traits? What do you find particularly difficult in dealing with these people? Which known real or fictitious people with the characteristics of the Safekeeper or those who correspond to an anxious or avoidant personality disorder do you know? Write us all your answers and all your questions under the video. We will make a video at the end of the series in which we answer these questions. We look forward to your comments. If you haven't done already, like and share the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to be always up to date. Thanks for watching and see you soon!